Hello, this is Lonnie Milbus. Once again, welcome to the second episode of Effing the Ineffable. Today, I want to discuss why does magic work? What makes it work or not work? These are kind of things that we can tend to take for granted, so I'd like to spend a little time talking about kind of what's behind the scenes with some of these operations. I feel it's important to very briefly in the beginning to define what is magic. What do I mean by that? There's magic and there's magic. I'll just really oversimplify in saying that there is a magic that is spells and different conjurations, different things that's intended for selfish means. This is kind of equivalent to the siddhis in yoga. Mystic powers essentially, but the key there, and I kind of classify it as black magic. The key there to classifying it as such is that it's for selfish ends, that it's serving the senses or ego drives and things like that. Then there's magic to do good works, which is kind of the other side of the same coin, kind of a material aim and things like that. Then there's magic, which I define a little bit differently. All of them are, as Crowley defined, creating change in accordance with the will. Magic, however, I take as meaning a system of kind of borrowing from the black magic and the white magic, on any other of the colors that you've heard theorized, borrowing from those, but only really turning them upon oneself or one's immediate environment in order to facilitate further progress on the spiritual path, the path of return. So there we go. Anyway, so what makes magic work? One of the things that most practitioners or teachers of magic will talk about is aligning the symbols. You put certain scents and certain colors, certain weapons upon the altar. You have certain visualizations, and all of these things need to be coherent. They need to all be aligned with the intent or the singular focus of the operation. So, elemental correspondences, astrological correspondences, all of it need to be aligned in a way that the magician can understand as being a part of the desired end. But why does that help? Why does it help to align these things? Is it that it brings a particular focus in the magician and somehow something is tapped into? I'm not very comfortable saying that intent is the power, is the thing that makes magic effective. Some people, they don't intend to get in extreme financial debt, and they end up in these transactions, and in that time they're thinking, well, I can pay this off, and they have a plan to do that, but it still happens. People still get buried in debt. So intent doesn't seem to be any kind of omniscient force. So you can't say that, I can't say that is why magic works. Magic has a source, and to understand this, maybe we can think of electrical systems. An electrical system has a raw energy, and from that raw energy, there's a generator or source, such as the wind, sun, nuclear fusion or fission, coal, etc. All of these things are harnessed by the human race and used as energy. And then there has to be some kind of energy collector, such as the solar panels or the windmills or whatnot. And then those take that raw power and they go through kind of a second phase, which is a transformer. The transformer is going to convert that raw energy into a usable form. And then you need wires once it's transformed into a usable form. You need wires to transport the energy where it needs to go. And those will end up taking it to a device that is built to take the common energy here in the United States, such as 110 to 120 volt electricity, and this device converts that within, also usually with some kind of internal transformers, capacitors, all of these things that make that device perform a specific function with the energy. So it turns what started as raw energy into a function. And this is kind of the metaphor I'm working with for how magic works here. Now, we'll look at what is the source. So we need to figure out what is the source, what is the raw energy from which magic is coming from. Perhaps it's not a finite end, but conceptually, if you'll just bear with me. So is this a word the source of the magical energy or power? There lots of religions and different systems will teach that these words have powers, and you don't say this word in a specific environment unless it's conducive to the use of that word. They call them words of power, but I don't think that anyone who is ignorant of the use of any of these words would have any effect upon uttering the word. It's just like gibberish. I don't believe that the words have power. I think that a word is attributed power through the perspective of those who hear it and those who use it. So, if someone is completely ignorant, it's the same as gibberish. So no, I don't believe that the word is the source of the power. Is a talisman a source of magical energy or power? Well, no, they're made from common raw materials. If you make one from silver, there's silver everywhere, and not all silver has this particular magical quality. They may have innate vibrations, but are not more magical than anything else per se. They can't transform reality so much as the magical operations that use them would be. The talisman must be charged before it can do any of this. But charged with what? It's not charged with words or intent. We've decided that. We may use words and intent in that, but there's something coming through these things. Whence comes the electricity with which the magician charges a talisman? What is that source? Is the magician is drawing something from somewhere. And we can't necessarily say it's the magician either, because, why would a magician be special over someone else who can't seem to, get even the most basic tasks completed? Sure, there are different hierarchies of skill, but the magician is not the source of its own power. We're finite. We need food to survive. We need water, we need air, we're perishable. We're finite. We're not able to contain all of this power. I believe that it's much more that we're a channel for the specific raw energy. So how about a magic wand? I think you're going to know the answer, but all the Harry Potter movies and all of that stuff, the wand has the power, right? Wands come from trees or from copper or from all these things. And are trees responsible for creation of the universe? Probably not. They don't seem to act much from my perspective, but so likely not. None of the implements, the tools, the candles, none of these things are the source of the magic power. Magic doesn't come from gross matter. All matter is made from the same materials. So if we think about that, anything that you could possibly be putting on the altar in order to align the symbols at a molecular level, an atomic level, it's all the same thing. So you're just substituting one set of atoms for another set of atoms. It's not really where the power is. There's really not change on those levels from what we're doing, but we are aligning something. So then the question, how about the will of the magician? We'll go with Aleister Crowley here, and I think it's safe to assume and it's safe to say that he is talking about will with a capital W as the source of the magical power. And that's great. I can't necessarily argue with that as much, as long as will isn't meant to, mean the things that we've disqualified. But what do we mean by this? As magicians, it's important to always know what we're doing, not to use arbitrary words or use things that we don't understand. It's not change in accordance with will if we don't get it. If we're looking for a result and we're doing things that we don't understand in order to get that result, that doesn't jibe with will. So I think we need to understand, if we're going to say that will is the source of the magic, that we need to understand what this will is. And we've discussed it a little bit more, but can we demonstrate its efficacy? Like, where can we say that will has produced some change that we can identify as magic, that's not just the mundane? If we mean volition or intent by the word will, can we raise the dead or levitate giant boulders by wanting it hard enough? No, of course not. Can everyone perform miraculous feats on demand? Perhaps people have the potential to do this, but it almost never happens. People generally feel helpless and kind of tossed about by the world. In most regards. I mean, some people are really good at making money. Some people are really good at fixing things. We do have the things that we control, but we don't generally feel in control of the universe most of the time, even though the mystics might say that we should. I've heard and read from more than a few magicians about performing earth magic. They stress the importance of having realistic expectations in this regard. So some will evoke spirits or light a green candle for abundance. Then they go in search of a job after doing this ritual, and it's declared a positive result of the magic when they get that job. But is it? I mean, it's possible that their job skills, their job search skills were doubled, and that they focused even more on getting that job after the ritual, enough to make it happen, enough to get the job. But it's good ritual practice, but is it miraculous? I mean, can we call it magic? Magic is, it doesn't imply just, I bent down and pulled these strings and my shoes became tied. That's not magic. Magic should be miraculous, right? So is it true that a magician cannot manifest any result beyond his or her capabilities? Say mundane capabilities. I think we've all, I know I have, and I'm sure that most people who would be listening here have had experiences where we do something and it aligns with the universe in the most random way. But it's glaring and it's not expected. It doesn't come from us looking for it. It's just like, wow. It's like an echo. Like it comes back. And there are skills that one needs to develop in order to tune into this and to turn their potential for tapping into this source into power. But we must be in touch with the source of the power in order to realize this. So it's kind of a double, like from both ends. You're in both ends of this relationship. So we have to have a working definition of will. Volition, intent, desire, conviction, they don't satisfy the definition of will as a source of magic. So it's a different kind of will. The word is used in many ways. These may all be manifestations of that one will, but they do not contain it. They're not it, that will. In a previous talk, I shared that I define will with the word God. Which is handy because there isn't anything that is not a part of God in my conception of that word. It's basically absolutely everything that ever exists or ever will exist at all times, everywhere, beyond time, whatever. So I kind of hedge my bets there and saying that will is everything. That's an easy way out, but it probably doesn't satisfy most of you either. One may call it the universe. That covers everything, or love, though not love is desire. But I think it's using the electric model. It's pure energy. Will is this pure energy. It's that which binds atoms together to create matter. It's a force. It holds atoms together. Now, if we think about it in that context, the atomic structure is held together by this will. Then if we go a step further, maybe there's a little bit of a miraculous glimpse into the miraculous when we think about what happens when we split an atom apart. In our country here, and believe it was in Nevada, the deserts, we split atoms apart and the world was changed forever. We did so in World War II. We unleashed this power, but, for horrific ends. But essentially, you split an atom, and it causes other atoms to split in a chain reaction. The same thing with fission, which is the thermonuclear method of splitting the atoms. But it's a tremendous power, like the greatest power known to humans within our technological realm at this time. So if you think of some relationship there between the atom being held together by this will, all matter being held together by this will, all of the cells of my body as I walk the earth, all working in concert because of this will. It's a mystical and maybe a metaphysical explanation, but it's one that I think works for our purposes here. Two words I like to use that are a little more practical to define will are maybe destiny, which again has a little bit of baggage with it from fantasy movies or whatnot, and inertia. Inertia is a tendency to remain unchanged. So it's a force. It's not really defined. Inertia is another bit of a vague word, but it really works when thinking of a concept of will. In an ever-changing world or universe of matter, the will is inertia, the one thing that doesn't change. It's pretty powerful, and it kind of goes back into the splitting of the atoms being the force that holds the atoms together. All else changes when it contacts this essence of inertia. The immovable force, and I'm lost on that anyway. But you know what I'm talking about. It's everything will go around it. Everything finds a way to adapt and escape the inertia. So in the courtship for the knowledge and conversation of the Holy Guardian Angel in AA, the aspirant subjects his or herself to a myriad of changes, stripping away all that blocks the flow of perception of the angel. And the angel is kind of a form of this will that we're talking about. And so in the AA, you figure out what is not compatible with tapping into this source, and you remove it, or you change it, you fix it. So this is how magic works. This is why we align the symbols. We're tapping into something and getting out of the way. It's like we're hooking the wires together. Any magical operation is the aligning of the magician with the intent in order to become a proper conduit for the results to occur. In our electricity model, the magician could be the device at the end of the chain of the electrical system. He's the one, he or she is the one creating that function. The result is the function of the device. The HGA perhaps is the transformer. It's taking the raw energy from beyond even that and sending it out as a universal, more materially practical, usable energy. And the source of the raw energy is God, the universe, that pure inertia that is unmovable, immutable, the force of nature behind all that we say exists. The Force from Star Wars again. It surrounds us and binds us. Luke Skywalker was talking to Yoda at one point, and he says, they're talking about the Force, and he says, so it controls our actions? And Yoda says, yes, but it also obeys our commands. And that really, it aligns with what's in the Bhagavad Gita, with the devotees of Krishna becoming a slave to the devotees of Krishna then enslave Krishna or God. It's a little bit more into the further work of the aspirant up into Netzach and reflecting on Hod, and then uniting and harmonizing those as a Dominus Liminis. You can see the relationship between Bhakti and Gyan Yog, where they really don't exist without one another. You work on them independently, but one leads to the other, and then you get to the next one and you find that it's wholly dependent on the cultivation of the previous one, that they come together. And this is kind of the relationship that the Vedas describe between God and the spiritual aspirant or the yogi. So there's nothing that cannot be done when we are wholly aligned with that force. If we're talking about the base inertia, the force that binds all matter and maybe beyond together, that holds our very bodies together in the form of cells and atoms, that brings them into this form, that's a powerful force. And there's really, if we control that, or not control it so much as control our relationship with it in order to channel it to the ends which we perceive as being its natural direction, or what it requires of us, then there really is a tremendous power and energy behind that, which differs greatly from, trying to get a girlfriend by burning a particular color of candle or whatnot, which is all fine. It's just, it's different magic. That's not as, I don't believe as powerful, that sort of magic, and it's probably more random hit and miss than actually being able to declare specific results, which are invariable, such as is the case with the AA system on working the magic upon oneself. Because it is not we that are the doers. It's one of the most important lessons to learn about the sacred magic is that it's not us that are the doers. We are the facilitators. We are the channels. It comes through us, and we learn to direct it because we've made ourselves capable of receiving its will, essentially, its direction through us, and we can see how our material environment relates to that. And if it's not going to work out, we can change the external environment in somewhat miraculous ways. So it does this through us, but it's a co-relationship. It's kind of a simultaneity. But the more we grow into that and learn to abide therein, the more our intent and actions become known to us as having that will as their source. When we're stepping above, transcending the ego, and seeing that the sense desires and all of the little whirlings of the ego aren't what we're talking about. We're talking about raising our consciousness to the point that we can see the actual will, the kind of direction of the universe, align ourselves with that, and then move our lives accordingly. And when we reach our potential, even only a handful of us can alter the course of the world in miraculous and magical fashion. And I believe that I have a responsibility to do this, and I hope that some people that are listening feel that they do as well, that maybe some things in the world are kind of going against this current, which inevitably will lose, but definitely we need people to learn to harness this and to tap into this and maybe create a little less suffering and a little more joy and a little more of what this universe seems to really be about, or at least this life on Earth, by tapping into that universal source or will. So that's pretty much my talk. I just wanted to get a little bit of an idea of what makes magic work, and that's kind of my model for it. If you have anything to say about that, or any questions, or any further discussion, definitely be appreciated if you wanted to post it on the locations or in the comments, or contact me personally. I'd love to talk about it with you. So I hope you're happy and joyous in the accomplishment of your true will, and I'll look forward to speaking to you again very soon. All right.